Hello. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Lynda Lamp, and I'm here to read from Walking Through Your Walls, Loving Yourself and Everyone Else. Today, we'll be reading from the very end of the Deconstructing Religion section, chapter, and then we'll pick up with chapter 7. Now, I prefer using an external mic while I'm doing this, but there is some outside noise that I'm hearing. So if at any point that outside noise becomes more than you would care to listen to, let me know. I have my headset right here and I can quickly plug it in and switch to a headset. But we'll just see how it goes. Hello, Amber. Thank you so much for joining me. I think I know who the other viewer is right now. Oh, we're up to 3 people. Yay! All right, let's get started. I know I don't like it when people start live things and then don't get started on time. So the very last page in the Deconstructing Religion chapter is balancing your root chakra. And if you'll recall, the chapters about the chakras are interwoven throughout these chapters in this book and through the other volumes. And I will be releasing the entire series of chapters, for chakra chapters, I call them, in their own standalone book later in 2021. That is coming. So balancing your root chakra, which is the first chakra in the system. Here's a quote from Henry Miller. Our own physical body possesses a wisdom which we who inhabit the body lack. We give it orders which make no sense. Your root chakra honors the earth, and its function is to give you your life force or vitality. Balancing your root chakra will bring you into good health with a positive feeling about life and the world. Using sound as a balancing tool, you can chant LAM, L-A-M. If you do it at the tone of C, which is 261 hertz, all the better. Eating red foods and also protein will help balance your root chakra. Getting a pedicure can help because your feet are your roots. You can use aromatherapy from oils coming from the root or trunk, such as juniper, frankincense, sandalwood, rosewood, cedarwood, and tea tree, and also perhaps rose, as in roses are red. Be careful with any candles or flames. Never leave a flame unattended. You can do yoga or meditate with your forefinger and thumbs together, making circles with your hand resting on your knees. You can use some of the clearing statements in the earlier sections on the root chakra. Affirmations also work. Try saying, I am a divine being of light, and I am peaceful, protected, and secure. Quote from Andre Lorde says, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important that I am afraid. All right, on to chapter 7, filling in the gaps. We'll start with a quote from Plato. There will be no end of troubles of states or humanity itself till philosophers become kings in this world, or till those we now call kings and rulers really and truly become philosophers, and political power and philosophy thus come into the same hands. Isn't that timely? Here it is 2021, and that quote is just as timely as it was then. I hope you're still with me. The chapter you just read is likely the most challenging in the entire book to get through. That was the Deconstructing Religion. If you're still with me, then we're going to become good friends, I think. We're walking a fine line, and when we look back through the timeline, we can see we've been on this warring edge from the beginning of recorded history. We very early on in our existence slipped into the mindset of, well, we'll just kill the people we disagree with, or those things that we want, like animals to eat or clothe us. There is so much more that could be included in setting up our starting point together here in the halls of history. But rather than spend too much more time on this, let's wrap it up so we can get on to the good stuff. As you'll recall, a lot of philosophers are listed in the timeline. I thought of including psychologists and more scientists, but I decided enough was enough. The timeline is just to make a point. It really is true that you can likely find someone who will agree or someone else who will disagree on just about any point you can think of, from science to human development. Everyone has a theory. Here's a quote from Carl Sagan. We have also arranged things so that almost no one understands science and technology. This is a prescription for disaster. We might get away with it for a while, but sooner or later, this combustible mixture of ignorance and power is going to blow up in our faces. I don't have the year that he said this, but again, another very timely quote. There are some other theories that we should at least touch upon, some additional data that we should at least glance at, and a few unanswered questions we should take a look at. One question you might have is, what is the difference between being religious and being spiritual? I think the simplest answer is, as Deepak Chopra says, religion is belief in someone else's experience. Spirituality is having your own experience. This, in fact, is a fundamental and critical point. If you are religious, you have accepted the truth from others, unless you're one of the people starting some new denomination or religion, and then you're suggesting to others that they should embrace your truth. Being spiritual, on the other hand, comes from your own experiences. It leads to a larger and more indefinable understanding that can be shared through the principles of oneness. Ultimately, it leads to the truth of connection. Because there is no single spirituality or New Age leader, it is impossible to get a head count or know how many people would truly describe themselves as spiritual first. The structure of Love by Light may help solve this problem. We'll go into this process in detail in Volume 3, but you can visit you can go to lindalamp.com, and I have in a section about Love by Light. There is a URL in the book, and you can go to that URL in the book, and it should direct you actually to the main website. Let's go back to the beginning of life, because it bears a closer look. Life on Earth happened quite quickly by comparison to what led up to forming of Earth. Well, quickly when you're talking in billions of years, that is. It's entirely possible, since life started so quickly after the formation of Earth, that it could have come from elsewhere, and that there is life throughout the universe. Panspermia is the hypnosis that life exists throughout the universe, distributed by meteorites, asteroids, comets, planetoids, and also by spacecraft in the form of unattended contamination by microisms. Panspermia is not meant to address how life began. It's just the method that may cause its distribution in the universe. There are other theories of the origin of life. Aborigines suggested that it just happened. The right combination of geophysical, biological, and chemical organic compounds led to life. One possibility is lightning, combined with the right combination of circumstances. This is my personal favorite, and the one I believe to be the most accurate, since it is commonly accepted that we are light beings. We humans are the result of lightning. The Miller-Urey experiment, reported in 1953, showed that electric sparks can generate amino acid and sugars from an atmosphere loaded with water, methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. Lightning may have played a key role in the development of life in the early days. Ultimately, it took amino acids, which were the result of a chemical reaction on Earth, or came from space. In my understanding of how things work, all of this, however, any of it came to be, was a result of the isness contemplating itself. As our great parent, the isness, the one that is all, considered itself, it became a creator in physical form. There are a multitude of dimensions, and what we see in this physical realm is a result of our contemplation and manipulation of the different dimensions. We'll get to this concept more in section 2 of this book. Another topic we'll go into in section 2 is time. I built a timeline for you when in reality, there really is no such thing as time. But because a linear approach is necessary to see and track events, we're going to save the in-depth discussion of time for a later chapter in this volume as well. Looking at events in a linear way, my understanding is that in the beginning, things happened so slowly because we had just started thinking about these things. And once the great isness that we are a part of got the hang of it, creation of things started to happen more rapidly. Figuring out this third dimension in which we are creating was a challenge in and of itself, and it took a bit of thinking. My head hurts just thinking about the thinking we had to do to make the third dimension. When I was doing my metaphysical work back in the 1980s and 90s, the telekinesis work made my head hurt the most. I did achieve moving a piece of paper and also a pencil on a table using just my mind. But that's a different story. Let's not get off track. Another point worth a brief mention. It is estimated that 1 million years ago, we developed different skin and hair colors, and we began to lose our body hair. There are lots of different ideas about all of this, but no one really knows anything about it. What we think is that we all supposedly started out as dark-skinned, dark-haired, and dark-eyed, and then at some point around 1 million years ago, our skin lightened in color and we developed different hair colors. The generally accepted idea is that these changes occurred due to migrating to colder climates, which makes no sense to me. What makes sense to me is that we, the one mind, decided to try something different. No, we didn't just try different eye colors, in particular, blue eyes, till just 100,000 years or so ago. There's a beautiful map that shows our skin color distribution across the globe at https://why-evolution-is-true.wordpress.com/2007/20. And then the title with dashes between these words, why does skin color vary among human populations? And I think that we have if we don't, we will soon have a link to this map through my website as well, in the book section, in the Walking Through Your Walls Volume 1 book section. We have been taught that the land masses were all once connected and that something happened that caused them to drift apart. We're taught that that split occurred between the Americas and Europe and Africa. Visually, if you look at a world map, it's easy to sell that because the pieces look as if they fit together. Yet when you look at the color distribution maps of prehumans and humans, they tell a different story. The only thing that makes any sense in light of maps of color distribution is that Australia and New Zealand were originally attached to Africa, and the Americas were attached to the eastern side of Asia. Now, suddenly, the color distribution has some cohesion. Otherwise, if you imagine the Americas nesting up to Africa and Europe, the color distribution between South America and Africa makes no sense at all. There are contradictory maps out there that would match up with popular plate tectonics theories, as can be predicted. I raise the subject as a question and suggest you draw your own conclusions. However, maps of how language developed match the theory. I hate hyphens. However, the maps of how language developed match the theory that the plates of land separated in the Pacific region, not the Atlantic. And see, this is where I think you have to look at multiple pieces of the truth and put them together to see the bigger picture of the truth. And most people, when they're going through school and studying something, they get on a track and they just look at it from that one direction. And that's why I'm bringing all this out in this chapter here. Language distribution maps show human migration as if the continents were joined in the reverse of what we've been told. Noam Chomsky, a prominent proponent of discontinuity theory, argues that a single chance mutation occurred in one individual about 100,000 years ago, instantaneously installing the language faculty in perfect or near perfect form. It follows from this theory that language appeared rather suddenly within the history of human evolution. As we touched upon earlier, our closest cousins are chimpanzees. We share 98.8% of our DNA with them. What scientists now know is that there are two distinct lines of chimpanzees, common and bonobo. We are equally related to both. If you remember earlier, we've talked about these chimpanzees. Common chimpanzees do not like strangers, and they are known for raping, killing, warring. Their current population numbers are thriving. Bonobo chimpanzees, on the other hand, have never been known to kill anything, and they are almost extinct. It's so interesting. If you buy into the theory of evolution, it's a little confusing, isn't it? That the loving chimps are almost extinct. We put a lot of value in Darwin's theory of evolution and the survival of the fittest. Why aren't the loving chimps the fittest? Is it our genetics that makes us violent? Is it that the root of our problems with creating heaven on earth is that the root of the problems in our being able to create heaven on earth, which is what we came here to do? Bruce Lipton, in his book, The Biology of Belief, tells us we can change our genetics by changing our beliefs. Or is it, as some suggest, that our troubles really started with the development of language? With it came the ability to deceive, to misrepresent, and to lie. Noam Chomsky theorizes the start of language was a sort of leap in our evolution caused by a mutation. It causes me to pause and wonder, what if this mutation were an aha moment in the process of creation? We figured out how we needed to modify the chimpanzee jaw and mouth structure to make more controllable sounds. So what if in our creation we decided to try in one creation and to mark the creation with blue eyes so we could keep track of the progress easily? The two mutations, the development of language and the first appearance of blue eyes, are said to have occurred 100,000 years ago. What if these two mutations happened at the same time in the same single human? It seems too coincidental that there would be two world-changing mutations at the same time. And there are no coincidences. It's interesting, isn't it? Fascinating, but actually not important overall, as I will show you in section 2. But before we get there, let's take a moment to look at language a little more closely, since it is likely that the development of language is when most of our troubles started. Prior to that point, it is presumed that we lived in harmony with nature. It is not really clear when or why we went from living in harmony with nature, or living in harmony, to living in fear, to fighting and warring. To me, why we changed and when we lost our peace and harmony, when we lost our happiness, is a critical moment to understand. It became incredibly important to me that I figure this out. Just as I had to trace the religions to find the truth, I had to figure this out. If we stop to consider how evolution of humanity occurred, it seems likely that something went wrong. Hang on. If we stop to consider how this evolution of humanity occurred, it seems that it likely went something like this. First, we used sign language along with sounds. Eventually, we drew pictures. We perfected our sounds. And in time, we made a connection between sounds and drawings. Did this occur when we came together with a different group of humans? Or did we start writing things down as a way to keep records, either for business or history? No one really knows. If you have ever watched children of different languages play together, you will see they instantly overcome their barriers. They figure out a way to communicate. When I was a small child, we lived in Beirut, Lebanon. There were many English-speaking children, but the daughter of our housekeeper was my age, and we played together our entire lives until I moved away. She spoke Arabic. It never mattered. Jacqueline and I could play for hours, and we never suffered from a language barrier. It is my impression that the development of language is responsible for the first lies being told. The Bible would have us believe the first lie was the serpent speaking to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Yet the Bible itself, in the telling of the story, tells the first lie, because Adam and Eve did not die that day. So in the most published book on planet Earth, we can't get out of chapter 1, Genesis, without confusion about what is true or what the first lie was. We could ask then, but really we could ask when, but really the more important question is why did we as humans decide we needed to lie to each other? Why did we need to use language to deceive each other? St. Augustine identified 8 kinds of lies. Lies in religious teachings, lies that harm others and help no one, lies that harm others and help someone, lies told for the pleasure of lying, lies told to please others during conversation, lies that harm no one yet help someone, lies that harm no one and save life, lies that harm no one and save someone's purity. Consider how many synonyms there can be for a lie. Ambiguity, bluff, fabrication, falsehood, falsity, fib, mendaciousness, prevarication, story, tale, untruth, whopper, taradiddle, distortion, exaggeration, obliquity, misreport, deceit, duplicity, fraud, hoax, jest, omission, perjury, propaganda, etc. I ask you to think hard about this because I believe it is one of the real keys to understanding how we can fix things now. It's also key to where, when, and why things went so awry and made heaven on earth appear so elusive. At some point in our evolution, something happened so that we could no longer just coexist. Something happened to make us distrustful and deceitful, and from that moment, our troubles began. The root of the word war is worse, to make worse. I heard someone say recently that the original usage was to confuse, as in the enemy. In any event, when did that start, our need to confuse and make worse for others, and why? How do we stop the warring and make peace? Life on planet Earth in the 21st century is extremely challenging. The 7 billion plus humans on this planet are really struggling. Now, remember, this was written 4 years ago. Regardless of the reasons why, one can't ignore the climate changes affecting everyone, raising ocean and sea levels, a decline in breathable air, a decline in drinkable water, an increase in earthquakes, and a shift in weather patterns that is resulting in extremes of all kinds, causing loss of life and property around the globe. Socially, fear has gripped the planet to a degree that is of great concern. The United States, founded on equality and love, has sunk to a low that can't be captured in these pages. What is being played out in the political arena can't be put into words. You just have to live through it to understand, and there's no understanding even then. In the late 2010s, a certain lunacy permeates the airwaves. It's easy to say that democracy for many has been lost to an oligarchy. Money, greed, and the lust for power has taken over the world. Even religion has been lost to it. Enough conspiracy theories exist to make your head spin, As I've mentioned, I witnessed one huge media conspiracy, so there's no doubt in my mind that conspiracy exists at a level we can't wrap our heads around. I lived through JFK's assassination. Hanging Chads were a conspiracy. We're living through the conspiracy of a Republican-held U.S. Senate as I write this. Books have been written on the subject of conspiracies. Surely some of them have merit. I wouldn't be filling in the gaps without mention of both the occult and aliens. Neither of these things I encourage pursuing. As we know, everything is energy. My personal philosophy is to keep your energy at home, leave the energy of the occult and aliens to themselves. I was fascinated to learn from Chris Good that the aliens he's worked with only want us to be more loving, more forgiving, and more helpful to others. It's great to know we're working towards a common goal. While both of these things exist, aliens and the occult, I'm here to show you what really matters is what we think about, and that the most important thing we can think about is ourselves and our spirit and our soul's purpose. Whenever we're thinking of anything other than our joy, loving everything, we're stalled in our evolution. We do not realize we are disconnected from source, disconnected from our personal power, disconnected from our wisdom, and disconnected from our souls. I'm here to light the path back to reconnection with yourself and what brings you joy and peace, which will result in a world of joy and peace. What strikes you the most about this chapter? Have you had the experience of spirituality? How do you feel about the 8 kinds of lies? Do you have a sense of when humankind's troubles began? And we end this section with another quote from Edward Council. If you would unfold the future, the present would be our greatest care. Well, it looks like we're going to be able to keep reading, maybe into another chapter. So we're going to do, and hang on a second, as long as we're here. My point here is that you can spend a lot of time getting caught up in the subject of aliens and the subject of the occult. And I'm not saying they're not real. It's all real. But it's a distraction. Right? That's the point I'm trying to make here. I don't feel like I actually made it very well in this chapter, but that's the point. It's just a distraction. It's not that they're not valid. They are. I'm sure there are aliens. I know there's the occult. I've seen it in action. But the real purpose is to come into yourself. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that in essence, you are co-creating the world you're experiencing. And if you haven't come into yourself, then whatever you're co-creating is probably not in alignment with your soul and your purpose of being here. That's, I hope that makes that a little clearer. Okay, strengthening your root chakras. Simon Weil says, to be rooted is perhaps the most important and least recognized need of the human soul. And I, in along that line, if you haven't heard about earthing or grounding, there is a theory that because over the years our shoes have become, in most cases, plastic soled or rubber soled and not leather, that we're actually not connecting to the earth when we're outside walking around. Even if you're walking on pavement, you're not really connected. There's something in between. So energy can't flow. That's the point, is that it's all energy. And all around us, we have these things that we've created that actually keep energy from being able to flow in a natural, normal fashion. So in essence, your non-leather shoes are also energy, but it's just the way the energy can move and flow is the point. The symbol/element of the root chakra is earth. When you have a healthy root chakra, you'll feel secure, as if you have your legs under you. You will feel firmly planted. You'll feel safe. You'll enjoy good health and energy and happiness in your job and finances. You'll be of good proportional weight and physically fit, with a good sense of well-being and satisfaction in life. You'll feel grounded and settled, centered and strong. It will be easy for you to let go of things no longer needed, and you'll enjoy a feeling of security and safety. The root chakra core wound is fear, and it rules your legs and your feet, your immune system, and your kidneys. It governs everything in your lower region, including your bowels, buttock, large intestine, and it also rules your teeth and bones, the roots of your body, eating disorders, and frequent illnesses. If you have issues with your root chakra, blockages, then you may suffer from things like chronic illness, persistent and repetitive medical experiences, problems with breathing, or breaking bones, or rotting teeth, and chronic indigestion. Steve Goodyear says, get yourself grounded, and you can navigate even the stormiest roads in peace. All of these maladies are the result of core fear. Here are some clearing statements to help strengthen your root chakra. I release and let go of everything that I am afraid of. I release and let go of my fears of abandonment. I release and let go of my feelings of persecution. I release and let go of my feelings of inadequacy. And here are some affirmations. Oh, good. Amber makes the comment that earthing has helped her pain. And that's fantastic to know. Here are some affirmations. I am safe and secure, and I have everything I need. I am stable and steady and can easily navigate life's path. I am strong and able. I am respected and loved. I matter. I am important. I am worthy. I matter, and I am worthy and important. And Confucius said, and remember, no matter where you go, there you are. Right? We can't run away from ourselves. All right, well, we've got a half an hour left, so I think we're going to be able to get through chapter 8, which is rewriting history. Carl Sagan, another quote, one of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Now, I remember this was written 4 years ago, and yet we're in the midst of one of the biggest, or perhaps the biggest, bamboozle in the history of the world right now with the QAnon conspiracy theory business. So here we are near the end of the first section of Walking Through Your Walls. In these past chapters, I've dragged you through a lot of information. I hope you're still with me. Thank you, Amber. To sum things up, it's fair to say that at this point, religion doesn't seem to be able to solve the problems of the world, nor does wealth, nor does science, nor do the drug companies, in spite of their culture of there's a pill for that. Many people out in the world right now are suggesting we need something new. Millions of people are seeking a new world, or at least a new experience of the world that we have. What I would suggest is that we already have and have always had everything we ever needed right here, right now, within us. We are all powerful beyond our wildest dreams. You are more powerful than you can imagine. If you don't feel powerful, you're not alone, not by any means. There's a myriad of reasons why you feel powerless, and I intend to illuminate the way for you to get your power back. An awakening is occurring on this planet in the hearts and minds of humanity. In actuality, is really more of a combined remembering of our roots and a forgetting of the illusions of this third dimension. Many are calling this evolution a new human or superhuman. What I see is more of a reclaiming of our birthrights and talents and a reconnecting of our internal guidance systems. It is possible that we awaken and reconnect. We are genetically changing, and by so doing, we are evolving. In order for us to achieve the ability to create a new world, we're going to have to wipe the film clean, as Edward Mannix would say. Each of us has been imprinted with everything we have experienced in this realm. In Volume 2, I'll go into more details on how to wipe the film clean at an individual level, but for the moment, let's look at what we can do at a broader level and at the level of humanity. As we've seen, the truth is elusive. Dan Brown says, history is always written by the winners. When two cultures clash, the loser is obliterated and the winner writes the history books, books which glorify their own cause and disparage the conquered foe. History is constantly being rewritten. Governments rewrite history as they decide what they want people to be told. Certainly, it would appear that scientists are at the helm of this movement nowadays. As they perfect their tools, they achieve an accuracy previously unknown, and thereby can redate, recalibrate, reanalyze, etc. As we saw earlier, for years and years, we've been told that Homo sapiens came from Africa, but now we think they come from Australia. What else have we gotten wrong? Perhaps everything. Another thing I hope I've shown you is that lots and lots of people have had theories about something, and many of these theories have been popular for a while and then lost popularity, or are so popular that they get repeated and reinterpreted to the degree that the original message gets lost in translation or overinterpretation. In essence, whenever we are looking outside ourselves at theory, we are lost. Everyone has a theory, but no one has gotten it totally right. And I don't suppose I'm getting it 100% right either. All I can say is that I've experienced all that I write about. And it feels true. If it didn't feel true, I wouldn't be sharing it with you. What if I further were to suggest that by rewriting our history, we might heal all the emotional wounds we've been carrying with us as a result of the old story? Doesn't it follow that you might need to be open to a new story if you would like your life to unfold with the power of your creative parent and the universe? Below, I'm going to tell you what I believe is the true story of what happened on that first day, when the one great mind, the all that is, thought Adam and Eve into creation. Here's the gift of a new story of the Garden of Eden. Here's the gift a new story of the Garden of Eden gives us. By telling it, we're going back on our film to our beginning of time imprint, and we're making a new imprint. We are allowing this new story to have a creation. All that exists is a thinking, feeling substance. And by changing our beliefs, everything around us will feel the shift as each of us embraces this new story of Eden. And in that feeling, we will reflect in return the new uplifted happiness of the story. You know, there's a really critical sentence in here, and I'm going to go back and read it again. All that exists is a thinking, feeling substance. And by changing our beliefs, everything around us will feel the shift. And as each of us embraces this new story of Eden, and in that feeling, we reflect in return the new uplifted happiness of the story. So I can't remember if I talk about him in this book or not, but Wallace D. Wattles is famous for saying, there is a thinking stuff of which all things are made. And it is, I believe him to be completely accurate in that statement. Everything around us will be so happy, and the happiness of what surrounds us will loop back to make us happy. How this works will be explained in section 2 and in great detail in volume 2. So here's the new story of the Garden of Eden. Once upon a time, the one great mind, was contemplating this magnificent jewel of a planet that the mind had created, and it further contemplated how to be able to experience the extraordinary bliss that was so apparent upon it. Had already spent a fair amount of time, contemplation time, decorating the planet with all kinds of different plants and flowers, lots of other life, birds, mammals, reptiles, a true abundance, and more was coming. As the mind, we, could think of a new design. Our creative force was quite amazing, and our imagination was unlimited. It still is, we just don't realize it. So created 2 humans, deciding that allowing those 2 to make the next humans would be a really fun thing to experience. We had experienced childbirth in other species, but these humans, they seemed really ideal for experiencing the bliss and beauty of life. We had spent some time contemplating this. We'd been making adjustments to our design until we'd reached what seemed like perfection. Now, in the course of Ah's creation of Earth, a few glitches had appeared. As hard as one might contemplate something when building or experimenting, there can be unintended results. So when Ah placed Eve and Adam on paradise of Earth, or Eden as Ah called it, the following was communicated to Adam and Eve. This is Eden on Gaia, Earth as we call it. It is a paradise beyond anything we have created so far. You should be able to live happily and comfortably, and everything around you is supporting you. There is plenty to eat and build shelter from, everything you need. What the one great mind thought is, this is going to be so much fun. It was the original reality game, if you will. Then, almost as an afterthought, I almost forgot. I made you a garden so you could have everything you would need quite handy, but for some reason, something didn't go right in there. I thought it would be easy for you to always have a place that would just magically produce food for you without having to go through the cycles we've created in life. Not sure what went wrong, just ignore the garden and especially the large tree in the middle. We experimented with cloning. It didn't work. There are some animals in the garden that didn't turn out quite as imagined. No worries, they can't get out. But just to be on the safe side, stay out of there. The rest of Eden, the planet, Gaia, Earth, is fair game. Go forth and enjoy. So Adam and Eve take up life on Eden. Before heading out that first day of creation, they dragged some branches and rolled a few rocks in front of the entrance to the garden, just to make sure they would never accidentally end up in the garden. They intended to honor their parents' request. They lived happily and they stayed away from the garden, and life was magnificent. Then one day, out while hiking, they happened upon the entrance to the garden. When they realized they had almost entered the garden because the things had blocked the entrance had deteriorated, Adam suggested that Eve go off and gather some lunch while he stayed to reblock the garden's entrance. When Eve returned, she was shocked to see the garden's entrance still open and Adam inside. She dropped the fruit she was carrying and ran to the entrance. Adam, what are you doing? Adam came to the entrance, clearly a little confused or intoxicated, holding an apple with the snake wrapped around his forearm, charming him. Hey, Eve, look at who I met, said Adam. This lovely talking snake, can you believe it? You know, he was telling me there's no need to wander around all the time. We could move in here, where the food just magically appears. Eve, realizing that the energy inside the garden was really strange, and of course, remembering the warning of her parent, she instantly knew Adam was in trouble. She knew she was his counterpart and was here to be with him through thick and thin, to stand by him, if you will. It was, after all, just the two of them. There was no survival or future alone. She knew she could not support Adam in this case, however, nor should she. Instead, she knew she had to invoke her knowledge about their bodies and about healing. She knew that Adam's crown chakra had become blocked, that he had become disconnected from in part, if not totally, and that he was being influenced only by the physical third dimension gravity. It was, after all, what was keeping them from flying off into space. Gravity was one of the last things created before he created life. We created life. Without it, life would have been impossible, since everything was ending up spread across the galaxies. That was actually quite a mess for Allah to clean up. So what to do? What to do? Eve realized there was only one thing she could do. Adam, sweetheart, could you step outside the garden for just a minute? I don't want to waste this fruit since I picked it. When Adam came out, without the snake, since the snake was confined to the garden by design, Eve swiftly walked up to Adam, hugged him, and whispered in his ear, "You will forgive me for this once it's over and you are back to your senses." She stepped away from him, looked him straight in the eye, and said, "Ready?" Adam cocked his head in wonder. Eve grabbed Adam, put his head in a headlock, and gave him a brisk and thorough noogie. "There, I just reopened your crown chakra. Let's give it a few seconds to reconnect with Source. Then I expect you'll be anxious to close that entrance to the garden and your buddy, the snake." Adam stood there for a few minutes, the top of his head burning and smarting from the noogie, and then tingling subsided and he realized he was breathing, which had become quite shallow while he was in the garden, had sunk again into his lower belly. Suddenly, all of the color drained from his face. "What happened?" he cried. "You were cozied up to the snake when I got back from picking fruit. He must have charmed you into the garden." "Oh, let's finish what I'm supposed to start, and then let's go as far away from here as we can so we never come back," said Adam. This time, Eve and Adam found some really large rocks and totally blocked the entrance to the garden with them. They worked for a few days blocking the entrance. Even though it was just the two of them, they knew the future there would be the others. They knew in the future there would be others. It was important that no one ever entered the garden. Finally, when they were done, Eve turned to Adam and said, "Now we can go off and live the great experience of humanity, experiencing heaven on earth. Good thing we didn't let all that history down by screwing up first thing." And with that, they wrapped their arms around each other in total, infinite, unconditional, and unending love, and went off to complete the story. And they all lived happily ever after. I ask you to stay in that world for a moment or two longer and imagine, if you will, the future from that point forward. Instead of the classic story goes, no fall from grace, no sin. Wouldn't you like to live in that world instead? Do you know how simple it is? It's as simple as this. Believe this story. Are there things about your history you would like to rewrite? How might your life be different had you made different choices? How would the world be different without the story of original sin? George Orwell said, "He who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past." Summarizing the halls of history. Michael Crichton says, "If you don't know history, then you don't know anything. If you are a leaf that doesn't know it's a part of a tree." We've covered a lot of ground together. If you've skipped ahead because of the details don't interest you, I can't blame you a bit. Many of the details didn't interest me, but if my role or assignment is to shine a light on things, then we needed to go through all those details. You can always go back and find what you need if it turns out there's something you missed. It's a handbook, so it seems reasonable you might jump around in it. As we prepare to enter the maze of walls together, I want to thank you for taking this journey of exploration with me. I hope I have illuminated things you have not yet noticed, and that if you had questions, you've reached out to me via Facebook or one of the other methods outlined in the introduction and about the author sections. So that would be, you can text 907-351-3003. You can go to lindalamp.com. You can also go to lindalamp.shop. And If you go to that last site, lindalamp.shop, you can sign up for the newsletter so you get any emails that I send, which I don't do that very often, so you don't have to worry. What does history really mean? It means only that we believe it to what we believe it to mean. It means only what others believe it to be. It means it's the edited truth. Somebody is responsible for deciding each truth you've been taught, but how truth was the truth you were told. It will be interesting to see how history will unveil itself in the coming months and years. Truth has become more and more elusive. Recent revelations of deep corruption around the world are shattering some of the myths of the current history books. Will capitalism continue to rule? Will the powers that be continue to ignore the clear signs of climate change? Will the people of Earth be so gullible as to be hoodwinked into the oligarchy's lies? Well, I think we got the answer to that one. What will the history books say in 50 years? The future of the planet hangs in the balance, awaiting our awakening. Joel A. Barker said, "Vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes time. Vision with action can change the world." And that's what we're all hoping for, I think, is vision with action to change the world at this point. It is interesting to see. I feel like COVID is a gift because we've lived 4 years since this book was written, and that last paragraph is still on point. Lots of people have been bamboozled and hoodwinked, and we're seeing that. We're also revealing all of the cracks in our democracy and republic. So, interesting times to be alive on Earth. Section 2, the walls of life. So remember, that whole first section we've been reading has been the halls of history. And now we're going to get to the walls of life. And we'll go ahead and read for a few minutes more. And this is just a nice section here. The walls of life. That's the key to walking through the wall. You have to see it as not being a wall, even though everyone you know still sees it as a wall. Oh, thank you, Amber. I appreciate that feedback. That was Kevin J. Shea. Chapter 1 of Section 2, Finding Your I Am Presence. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." I am here to shine a light on all the confusion, and in so doing, unbamboozle you. I'm here to help you find your power and get it back. As Carl Sagan says, once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. A lot has gone into disempowering us. It's time to find our way home to our source. It's time each one of us connect to our spirit and live our lives, fulfilling our spirit and soul's purpose. In Section 1, we looked at where you and I find ourselves on Earth, Gaia, Eden, and how we got there according to the history books. And you know what I think of them. What I'm going to do now is break down what I see are the walls that keep us from understanding life in a way that allows us to participate in our experiences to the highest vibration possible and always get the best outcome. If we were vibrating at our highest frequency, you and I would be able to walk through walls, walk on water, and a whole lot more. But these things have to be done in all seriousness and with purpose, not merely for show or entertainment or experiment. In life, we are instantly at a disadvantage. As illustrated and illuminated in the Halls of History section, what we've been taught has been decided for us by people in power and with money. The walls that loom are ignored, and we are encouraged to wander blindly through life, listening to the rich and powerful. We are taught to become what those around us would tell us to become. We are told to believe what we are being told. Don't you think you deserve the truth? the unadulterated truth, so you can decide for yourself what's important to you, what's relevant to you. It's my hope that this handbook gives you the truth you need to live an educated, whole, authentic, and genuinely awakened life. P.S. Babber from Cassie Draws the Universe says this: there are 4 kinds of people in the world, Mrs. Harper: those who build walls, those who protect walls, those who breach walls, and those who tear down walls. Much of life is discovering who you are. When you find out, you also realize there are places you can no longer go, things you can no longer do, and words you can no longer say. You deserve to be educated about the things you really need to know to maximize the power within you, to allow you to find wholeness and authenticity. You are a magnificent being capable of astounding things. You can walk on water. You can physically walk through walls. You can time travel. You are a creator and capable of magnificent manifestations. Your body can be whole and without pain. You can live comfortably in your meat suit, and you can heal from anything. You deserve to live your life, your genuine life. You're shaking your head, aren't you? That's wall number 1. And let me just pause for a second. I know that there are spiritual people who take exception to the term meat suit. I don't think I used it for shock value, but it's important to understand that you're not your body, right? Your body is your housing, and we'll get into that more later. But basically, that's the reference there, that you can live comfortably in this this housing that you're in, and that you aren't that housing. Are you living the life of your dreams? Are you always happy regardless of the circumstances? Do you find it easy to stay on center, in touch with your spirit? Are you healthy? My guess is most of you answered no. You're not likely living the life of your spirit or dreams, not likely happy regardless of the circumstances. There's a good chance you're not healthy even though you try to be. Am I right? Why aren't you happy? Why aren't you healthy? Whose job is it to make you happy and healthy? Volumes 2 and 3 will go into these concepts in great detail. For now, to a great extent, and for our purposes here, let me say, we tend to live the lives we've been told to live. We live the lives we're expected to live by others. We live lives in front of us. We take one step after another, and we don't really question where we're led or where we end up until we end up there. We follow the impulses of our body. Steve Jobs said, "Your work is going to fill a large part of life, and the only way to truly be satisfied is do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it." I'm just looking at the time here. I think we'll go ahead. We'll finish this chapter. We might run over by a few minutes. If you're connected to your great one parent, if you're connected to awe, if you're connected to your joy, then you're on the path of your spirit's assignment and your soul's purpose in this lifetime. You've discovered your I am presence and connected to it. I think you will likely still find value in this volume of the handbook, but you've made great headway already, and bravo for having the courage and persistence to do your inner work. If you're just living life, not living a life you adore and love, not feeling joy constantly, not bathed in gratitude, not crazy giddy over the miracle that life is and the amazing experience, the amazing story, the fascinating game of it, if you are not even thinking about it, one thing you can be assured of is that you will likely return to the third dimension in other lives to live it again and again, if necessary, to get another chance to figure it out. You came here to be happy. It is true, I believe, that we get to keep trying until we finally learn. And I think it's not a have to. I don't think it's a have to. I think we choose to come back until we get it. One reason why we live this way in separation consciousness, perhaps, is that no one has ever pointed out that we are separated or told us how not to live this way. Sure, there are all the other walls, but this wall is the wall of who am I? The most I was ever told is you'll figure it out. How do we navigate life? How do we figure out who we are? We look to our parents for answers, but often our parents tell us they don't know. Quite often, when we look around, we see mundane life, people living in the same neighborhoods generation after generation. While this may appear unexciting and boring or meaningless, in a later section, you'll see how this is a magnificent display of an energetic vortex, as I like to call it. People are stuck in energetic loopbacks. After looking to our parents for answers about life, many of us will try turning to religion to tell us about life. There's so much more to understanding life than can be learned through religion. Religion can't connect you with your individual spirit. Your parents can't. Your friends, teachers, coaches, doctors, priests, ministers, rabbis, etc. can't. Only you can discover who you are, who your I am presence is. Every single one of us on earth has an I am presence. I don't remember anyone ever telling me anything about it when I was little. I had to find it for myself. It wasn't until I was in college taking a psychology class that I heard about it in conversation. But I'd gotten a jump start on everyone without anyone realizing it. When I was 8 or 9, my mother let me wear her sorority ring from college. It was a pinky ring, but I wore it on one of my middle fingers. Even then, I think I had to put some tape on it to make it fit. It was inscribed with René Descartes' quote in Latin, "Cognito ergo sum." I think, therefore I am. Yeah, that was me, the little 9-year-old wandering around the woods with her dog, thinking about I think, therefore I am. I didn't understand it, but I knew it was really important. I knew it was like a secret. To a great extent, this handbook is about revealing the secrets of life. Manipulation of history, however, has turned the tools into secrets. I want to help you make the transition to the life you love, to wake up every day. Let me read that again. I want to help you make the transition to the life you love, to wake up to every day. You can be in what you currently would term hell and still wake up, as I am suggesting, giddy, alive, and in love with the experience. And you will find that as you do this, your life will miraculously change. There is a science to life, and once you understand it, life works for you. Remember, the underlying principle in all that I write about presumes an attitude of for the good of the whole. Life does not serve those who try to manipulate life in one's personal favor. Sure, you may get what you want by working really hard, but when you are connected to the flow of life, you get what you want, and it happens naturally with ease. Your ego is the construct of who you are in your mind. You are really energy and consciousness. You are not your mind. You are your thoughts. Your mind is not your thoughts. You are not your mind, or you are you, not your mind, are in charge of your thoughts. Ideally, you are in charge of you rather than your ego. However, your ego thinks it's in charge. Volume 2 will give you lots of ways to take charge of you. In the meantime, to function in the third dimensional realm, you need an identity. So your mind has constructed your identity. That is what your ego is. Your ego thinks that it is you and that it is in charge. Your ego is a set of core beliefs, self-definitions that also serve as a defense/protection mechanism. Your ego is the mason of the wall of yourself. It has crafted walls to protect you from anything your ego has determined can hurt you. The function of the ego is to protect you, so it has protected you by constructing walls through which you cannot see. This isn't where all the walls come from, but it's a start. Your ego is under the impression that there is something to fear here on earth in this third dimensional realm. So it creates defenses. To walk through the wall of your ego, you need to realize that your ego and the identity of you it has created is something your mind thought up. It's not the essence of you. Deepak Chopra said, if you want to reach a state of bliss, then go beyond your ego and the internal dialogue you are having with yourself. Make a decision to relinquish the need to control, the need to be approved, and the need to judge. Those are the three things the ego is doing all the time. It is very important to be aware of them every time they come up. You have to understand this wall is an illusion, just like everything in this third dimensional realm is an illusion, just like all the other walls we're going to walk through. Because your ego is involved, this is apt to be the most difficult wall to walk through. Your ego will fight you. It will not want to lose control. Just as your ego, when you attempt to meditate, that will make you want to scratch, sneeze, move, etc. It is fighting for control. When you attempt to silence your mind, you are putting your ego to bed. It will act like an angry child who does not want to go. It will raise hell. And just like with a temperamental child, we must take part in tough love and hold our ground. As with the child, it gets easier and easier, and eventually the temperamental behavior is extinguished, and your ego learns it must relinquish control. You need to remember that your ego serves a good function. It is just misguided. It is programming you for how it thinks you should be, instead of you programming it consciously. You can leverage your ego to your favor, which we'll talk about in Volume 2. The ego attempts to confirm whatever you and whoever you... No, sorry. This is a quote, too, from Howard Falco. The ego attempts to confirm whatever and whoever you declare yourself to be, from I am depressed and in debt to I am happy and free. In order to accomplish the task of verifying your beliefs, your ego will use any event and way of interpreting the event it finds necessary. Trust me, you can do this. You can learn to control your ego. You can get out of your own way. And once you do, the bounty of the universe will shower you. One of the greatest things we have here on Earth, Gaia Eden, is our eyes. Our eyes bring us so much joy. They show us the beauty of nature. Is there anything more beautiful? They show us our family, our spouses, our children, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They show us our pets, our surroundings. In the coming chapters, we'll look at the illusion of reality. Everything is moving, spinning, vibrating, and there is more space than anything solid. If everything is more space than anything and moving, what exactly is this place? What are we seeing, touching, tasting? What are we? What do we mean when we say I? Let's start with what we see. What we see are light waves. All light is the vibration of the electromagnetic field. What we see then, in one sense, is the electromagnetic field. This field is made up of a variety of light waves, from Y waves, X-rays, ultraviolet waves, infrared rays, microwaves, radio waves, FM, AM, and long radio waves. What we see is a very narrow spectrum between ultraviolet and infrared, and none of those waves has any color. So when you look at a person wearing blue jeans and a green shirt, those colors are in your head. In fact, everything you see is really in your head, a movie of your consciousness is creating. You'd be amazed at what we can actually see. According to Buckminster Fuller, everything we see is upside down in our own heads. There's a great graphic of what we see in this third dimensional physical realm at the following. It's http thespiritscience.net/wp-content/uploads/2014/1FYGP.jpg. There's also a copy on the book website in the reference section. You are the observer watching your creation of yourself in your head. Shift your focus away from what you are looking at to the you who was doing the looking, and voila, you have a whole new perspective. You can see yourself seeing others. Once you realize you are energy, just energy, you begin to truly see. Everything else is an illusion. Energy is all there is. This is the end of all your suffering. It's the end of all human suffering. Science has shown us that if we look at anything under the strongest microscope we have, it all looks the same as anything else. Everything looks the same at the smallest level. What does it mean? There's only one thing it can mean, as far as I can see. It means everything's made of the same stuff, fundamentally. Everything. Oneness is not just because we're all connected. Oneness is because we are all made of the same stuff. We are one at the microscopic level. We are all one substance. Of what we see in the apparent physical world in which we live, we know only 1% is actually matter. All suffering is the result of your illusion that you are some kind of individual being, that your being exists in some form and shape in the environment, and that you need to work to survive as your being, that your specific collection of 1,000 trillion atoms has to hold itself together, that you're in charge of this being, and that you must keep it safe and alive until it dies. When you realize that you are energy, all energy, just energy, and that your body is a temporary manifestation of that energy in a seemingly physical form, and when you realize that the energy you are a part of is the energy of the one great mind, a part of the all that is, then you have all you need to accept the life's death is illusionary, and the death of the I am present that is you is something that never happens. You always are and always will be. Everyone else will always be. We are all simply fractions of the larger whole in physical expression. Your I am lives forevermore. There is nothing to be afraid of. There is no death. There is only the appearance of death. There is no suffering, sickness, or diseases, only appearance of suffering and the like. There is no lack, only the appearance and belief of lack. There is no evil, only the appearance. There is no evil, only the appearance of evil. The evil are merely your confused sisters and brothers. You are not your mind. You exist outside of your mind. You are not your body. You exist outside of your body. You are not the image you hold in your head of yourself. You exist outside of any image. What are some things that come to mind when you consider your I am presence? How do you feel when you consider your I am presence? Can you comfortably say I am the expression of all life in physical form? I am in you and you in me, mutual in divine love. It's a quote from William Blake. I think we'll stop here. we'll do the moving through your sacral chakra and move on to chapter 2, dealing in dimensions, for our next reading. Question and answers will be on Tuesday at the same time, 1 p.m. Alaska time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. The post will have all of the other variations of time in there as well. You can message me at 907-351-3003. Texting is best. You can call and leave a voicemail as well, however. You can email your questions to questions@walkingthroughyourwalls.com, and we'll take those up on Tuesday. Thank you again so much for joining me. For Amber, for being here for the whole time. I really appreciate you so much. And to everyone else who's viewing it now or later in the future, namaste and much love.